Friends, the topic assigned for today's discussion is the scope of total income and residential status. We will be discussing the background and then I will come to you regarding the amendments that have been made in this budget regarding the residential status. To give you a small background, for every country to impose a tax, there has to be some nexus which the government can establish either with the income or with the person. Right? Let us say the Indian government wants to impose a tax. Obviously, the purpose of the government is to maximize the tax collection. In that pursuit, can the government go to America and start and ask an American to pay tax in India? Right? We have no connection with that person. He is earning an income independently in America. He is a resident of that country. He is a citizen of that country. We have no connection with him. We have no what we call a nexus with it. So therefore, we cannot impose a tax. Tax can be imposed only when, as per the nexus theory, the government can establish a nexus either with the person or with the income. Right? In fact, all countries in the world impose a tax on two bases. One is what we call is a source rule, and another is a residency rule. So we try to tax an income which is earned in a country or which is received in a country, or in case of a person who is a resident of that country, we impose a tax on his global income because that person happens to be a resident. Now, these are the basic rules which all countries, in fact, are following. And during the preceding years, we saw that people have started misusing these provisions also, because like in India, our main emphasis is to tax on the basis of residential status. So many people you will find trying to become non-residents by taking advantage of the provisions of the law. So it is in this direction so as to prevent abuse and to prevent tax avoidance. We have been making different amendments in our Income Tax Act from time to time. 2-3 years back, we changed the concept of how to determine the status in case of a company. For example, earlier, all foreign companies were considered to be non-residents. Then we changed that concept that if we introduce the concept of POEM, where is the place of effective management? If that company has a place of effective management in India, even if it's a foreign company, it will be deemed to be resident. This year, we have made major amendments regarding the residential status of an individual. Right? So these are the provisions. These provisions are contained in Section 6 of the Income Tax Act. We will deal with these provisions. I will first take you through the existing provisions and then I will introduce what are the amendments which have been made. Can we have the next slide, please?
Please, sir. Sir, one another request. Members are facing problem for voice. So
Okay.
is it possible to conduct this meeting with a microphone if it is possible, sir?
I do not have a microphone here.
Because there is in chat box I'm receiving messages from members. Voice problem is there. They are not able to listen properly. There is no problem from my side, but some person who are using mobile, they are facing problem. Echo problem is there. Sir, not an issue. We right now we can conduct. Please continue, sir. I'm shifting slide. Hello. Gupta sir has unmuted himself. Wait a minute. He's trying to get. Please.
Under the Income Tax Act depends primarily on your residential status. Right? We have two concepts. One is of a residential status, one is of a citizenship. Under the Income Tax Act, citizenship does not play the major role. In one or two points, you will see that citizenship will also matter, but primarily the tax liability is determined on the basis of whether are you a resident or you are a non-resident. Right? And we have to see this resident status for each year separately. A person can be a resident in 1 year and can become a non-resident in the other year or vice versa. So this is why we need to determine the status of a person for each year separately. right? Come on to the next slide, please.
Next slide is for classification. I think it is not shifted. I'm not able to shift it.
Acha. You don't have, I think you have not been able to download that properly. But anyway, the classification, I can tell you, on the basis of regional status, an individual has been categorized primarily into two categories. He could be either a resident of the country, a resident in India, or he could be non-resident. Right, we have it here. Right, so individual could be either a resident or a non-resident. If he's a resident, then we further classify him to be either ordinary or not ordinary resident. All these provisions are given in section 6 of the Income Tax Act. 6.1 deals with whether a person is a resident or a non-resident, and 6.6 will deal with under what circumstances will he be a not ordinary resident in India. So if a person is a resident, we will see what are the conditions to be satisfied. If he is not a resident, automatically he becomes a non-resident. So what we have done is under section 6.1, we have prescribed the conditions to determine whether an individual is a resident or not. Come to the next slide, please. Now, section 6, I was telling you, section 6.1 gives the condition to determine whether an individual is a resident or not. Two basic conditions. If he satisfies any one of them, he will become a resident. First condition says that if during the previous year, the individual is in India for a period amounting in all to 182 days or more. So here you will analyze the only condition is regarding your stay in India. For how many days were you in India during the previous year? That is the only criteria. When I am determining the period of stay in India, I am not looking at the purpose. Why is in India? That is irrelevant. What I have to see is his mere physical presence in India. Now, like in these days of COVID, there were cases where a person came to India, did not want to stay here for long. He wanted to go back to his country, but was forced to stay here because the flights were cancelled. And because of which his period in stay in India exceeds 182 days. Will he become a resident? Can he say that I did not want to stay here? We have no such exceptions. If a person is in India, he is in India. Whether he comes here as a tourist, whether he comes here on business, whether he comes here as a student, we are not concerned. As long as he is in India, his period of stay will be counted. If that stay happens to be more than 182 days, he becomes a resident. Again, when we are considering the period of stay here, it does not have to be a continuous period. He can stay here for 60 days, go to another country, come back here, stay for 90 days, again go back, come again. So we have to see during the year how many aggregate number of days was he in India. And again, this stay in India can be at different places. One time he can stay in Delhi, second time he comes, he can stay in Mumbai, third time he can stay in Ahmedabad, right? He can stay in, let us say, Chennai, it does not matter. As long as he is in India, we will count that stay in India. If he stays in India for 182 days or more, then we have to see nothing else. He will become a resident of that previous. So with that previous year, he will be a resident. So if this condition of 182 days is satisfied, nothing else needs to be examined. And here, I am not talking about only citizen of India. I am talking about every individual. So therefore, even if a citizen of America, an American citizen comes here, stays for more than 182 days, he is called a resident of India. So here we are talking about all individuals, whether they are resident or they are whether they are citizens or they are non-citizens. So if the first condition is satisfied, look at no other conditions, automatically classify as a resident. If he is in India for less than 182 days, then come to the second condition. Does he satisfy the second condition? Second condition says he should be in India for more than 60 days during the previous year, and he should have been in India for at least 365 days during 4 years preceding the previous year. So first I will see during the previous year how many days was in India, did that exceed 60 days? And if he is in India for more than 60 days, then go 4 years prior to that. If he is in India for 365 days during those 4 years, then again he will be called a resident. So second condition has two parts. In India for 60 days or more during the previous year, plus 365 days or more during 4 years preceding. Then also he becomes a resident. Now, drawing from this second condition, I can easily say that if a person is in India for less than 60 days during the year, he will be a non-resident. Because he will not satisfy condition 1, he will not satisfy condition 2. If he is in India for more than 182 days, he satisfies the first condition. If he is in India between 60 to 182 days, then look at 4 years prior to the previous. If he is in India for 365 days in the previous year, then he satisfies the second. Now, along with these two basic conditions, there are two exceptions given in the explanation to section 6.1. Now, these two are also very relevant. First exception is basically available to an individual who is a citizen of India and who leaves India during the previous year for the purpose of employment outside India. Right? So he is a citizen of India. Maybe he has been staying here for the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Now, during the previous year, he goes out of India for purpose of employment. This explanation clause A says he will not be deemed to be resident in India if he is not in India for at least 182 days. That means, simply speaking, for him the second condition becomes redundant. So he'll be resident in India only if he is in India for 182 days or more during the previous year. Otherwise, he will not be a resident. So who can take benefit of this? Only citizens of India who are going abroad for the purpose of employment. Employment here does not necessarily mean only service. If a person is going out of India, even for setting up a profession there, even for the purpose of doing a business there, that is also counted as employment. So for that year, he will not be a resident unless and until he is in India for at least 182 days. Who will get the benefit here? Right? Supposing a person has been in India for the last 20 years, he has been staying here. This year, he is in India till month of September. In October, he goes out of India for purpose of employment. If I go by the normal condition, he satisfies the second condition. He's in India for more than 60 days and 365 days in the last 4 years. So he will become a resident. But because of this exception, he will be a non-resident. Right? What is the repercussion of becoming a non-resident? We will analyze that a little later, but that is very important. Second exception says if an individual is a citizen of India or is a person of Indian origin who is staying outside India, right? He has been staying outside India for some time, comes to visit India during the previous year. Right? He is settled there, but during the previous year, he wants to come to India to visit his friends, relatives, or for tourism purposes, he wants to come here. Then again, we say that the period of 60 days will be extended to 182 days. That means he can stay in India every year for 182 days without becoming a resident here. Right? So these are two exceptions which are given in explanation 1. First is if he is going out for the purpose of employment. Secondly, he is staying there, comes to visit India during the previous. Now, major amendment this year has been made in clause B of explanation 1. Right? This is in respect of citizen of India or a person of Indian origin who was outside India and he could come to visit India for 182 days. Now, let us see what change have we made in this provision. Come to the next slide, please. Yes. This is the amendment that we have made in the second clause, in clause B. Now see, what was the purpose of bringing in this amendment? Now the government found that there are a large number of persons, individuals, who stay in India for major part of the year. They take money from India, set up a business outside India. Now the foreign income that they are earning from this business is no longer taxable in India because they manage to become non-residents. Once you are a non-resident, your foreign income is not taxable. Therefore, the government wanted to target these persons. So then we introduced this clause. Now we say that in case of a person who is a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin staying outside India, if his total income of the previous year, excluding foreign income, exceeds rupees 15 lakhs, then he can stay here for maximum 120 days. Instead of 181 days, it has been reduced to 120 days. So therefore, he cannot stay here for more than 119 days. As soon as he crosses the limit of 119 days, he becomes a resident of the country. So now the period of stay for these persons will be restricted to 190. If his total income in India does not exceed 15 lakhs, then there is no change for him. He can stay here for 181 days. Right? The change is only when his income exceeds 15. When the original finance bill was introduced, this clause was not there of 15 lakh rupees income. So then there was a huge hue and cry that what will happen to persons who are, let us say, working in Dubai. If a person is earning salary in Dubai, then he can also become a resident here. So then we introduced this concept of the income exceeding 15 lakhs. Small taxpayers will be excluded from the event. So only if your total income, excluding foreign income, exceeds 15 lakhs, then the period of 181 days has been reduced to 119 days. If you stay here for 120 days or more, you become a resident. What is total income? How do we compute this income of 15 lakhs? What is to be included? What is not to be included? I will come to that a little later. As we progress, I will come to that a little later. For the time being, let us keep this figure in mind that if my total income, excluding foreign income, exceeds 15 lakhs, then the maximum period of stay in India shall be 119 days instead of 181 days. Right, so this is one amendment which has been made in this provision, in section 6.1. Come to the next slide, please. Next amendment is a little more serious. Yes. Now we have introduced a new section 6.1a. Right? This section overrides 6.1. When I read the section 6.1a, it says notwithstanding anything contained in section 6.1. So 6.1, forget about it. This is an independent section now. It says an individual who is a citizen of India and whose Indian income exceeds rupees 15 lakhs, again the same figure of 15 lakhs, and who is not liable to pay tax in any other country because of the reason of his domicile, residence, etc., he shall be deemed to be resident in India. Now this provision, as you will observe, is applicable only to Indian citizens. And because this overrides section 6.1, therefore, there is no limitation of the number of days of stay in India. That means even if a person is not in India for a single day, he can still be a resident. If he is a citizen of India, has income of more than 15 lakh rupees during the year, and he is not paying tax anywhere in the world. Right? We found that a large number of people were, because of their number of days stay here, not being treated as residents here. They were not residents of the other country also. Because of the rules of that country also they could manage. They are not residents, in fact, of any country in the world. So their foreign income was not being taxed in any other country. Right? For example, they are, let us say, staying in a country where there is no tax. They were not paying tax anywhere in the world. So it was to target these people that we brought in this provision. It is applicable only to Indian citizens and it overrides section 6(1). Therefore, there is no condition here regarding the number of days that a person has to stay. Even if he stays for 1 day, does not stay even for 1 day, he can still be treated as a resident. Right, so this is a major amendment that was introduced. But this is, again, we have given a relief here. This would be applicable only if your income of the previous year exceeds 15 lakh rupees. If your Indian income, we will discuss this separately, what is to be included in this 15 lakh rupees. Right. Now, can we come to the next slide, please? Now see, by virtue of section 6(1) and 6(1)(a), we have determined whether that person is a resident or is not, or is a non-resident. When will be a resident? If we satisfy any one condition of 6(1), or he is deemed to be a resident under 6(1)(a), which has been newly inserted. Now, once he becomes a resident, I must know whether he is ordinary resident or not ordinary. Fortunately, what we have done is, we have included both these new amended provisions, treating the person to be not ordinarily resident. The repercussion we will just analyze a little later. But when a person is either he is having income more than 15 lakh rupees, staying outside India, comes to visit India, then he is deemed to be a resident if he stay in India for 120 days or more. Then he will be a not ordinary resident. Clause 1(a), which we have introduced recently, if he is deemed to be a resident, then also he is deemed to be a not ordinarily resident. Right? Earlier we had only one clause for a not ordinary resident. That is, there were two conditions in that. He had to be resident for 9 out of 10 previous years, and his stay in India during 7 preceding years should be less than 729. Then he is deemed to be a not ordinary resident. Now we have added 2 more clauses. That is the recent amendments that have been made. Both these have been put under not ordinary resident. So now we have 3 categories for not ordinary resident. Either a person satisfies any one of these 2 conditions. That is, for 9 out of 10 preceding years, he is a non-resident, or he is in India for less than 729 days. Either one of them he satisfies, he is not ordinary resident. Or any of the 2 new conditions that have been introduced, that will make him a not ordinary resident. Come to the next slide, please. We'll come back to all these provisions once I've gone through all these amendments. Then we will come back to them, and then it will become a little more clear. Right? These are 2 more clauses that I was explaining to you. That a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin whose income exceeds 15 lakh rupees and who is in India for 120 days or more, but less than 180 days, he will be treated as a not ordinary resident. If he stay in India more than 180 days, he becomes an ordinary resident. Between 120 to 181 days, he becomes a not ordinary resident. And secondly, who is deemed to be a resident under section 6(1)(a). Right? In both these cases, we have the figure of income of 15 lakh rupees. What is income for 15 lakh rupees? What do we have to consider there? It says the total income, excluding income from foreign sources, should not exceed 15 lakh rupees. Can we have the next slide, please? Now let us see what income is going to be taxed if a person is ordinary resident, what is going to be taxed if he is not ordinary resident, and what will be taxed if he is a non-resident. If a person is an ordinary resident, we tax his global income. That is all income which he earns in India, all income which is deemed to be earned in India, all income that is received in India, all income which is deemed to be received in India, and income which is accruing or received outside India also will be taxed in his hands. So whatever income he earns, wherever he earns it, that income becomes taxable in India if he is an ordinary. Right? So he is the person who is liable to tax in India on his global income. If he is a not ordinary resident, then what will we tax? We will tax the Indian income, that is any income which accrues or arises in India, which is deemed to accrue or arise in India, which is received in India, or is deemed to be received in India, all that income will be taxed. Foreign income is normally not taxed. Foreign income only from two sources will be taxed. That is, if he derives an income in a foreign country from a business which is controlled from India. Understand these words, please. That if he has a business which is carrying on outside India, but the control of that business is from India, then we will tax that income in the case of a not ordinary resident. Right? A person has set up a business in Dubai. As a proprietor, he is setting up a business outside India. But he is staying here most of the time. The business is controlled from India. Then although it is foreign income, but will be taxable in India. Or it is from a profession which is set up in India. Right? A lawyer, a chartered accountant who is doing practice in India goes to contest a case in a foreign court, in a court outside India. He receives fees for that outside India. So he has earned it outside India, he has received it outside India, but it is from a profession which is set up in India. So therefore, if he is a not ordinary resident, that income will also be taxable. Right? So these are the two incomes which we are targeting. Any income from a business outside India, but which is controlled from India, or is from a profession which is set up in India, will be taxable in the hands of a not ordinary resident. Both the amendments which we have made, you will appreciate, make that person a not ordinary resident. Does not make him an ordinary resident, only makes him a not ordinary resident. So therefore, these are the only two incomes which will be affected. If he is a non-resident, then we tax only the income that is earned in India or which is received in India, or which is deemed to be earned or deemed to be received. Foreign income is not at all taxed. So the effect of the two amendments will be, earlier that person could have been a non-resident, he would not have paid tax on the foreign income. Now because he becomes a not ordinary resident, therefore these two incomes will also be liable to be taxed in India. This is the major change that has been brought. This is the major effect that will happen because of this amendment. Can you come to the next slide, please? Next one. Yes. Now, we were talking about that these two amendments will be applicable only if your total income other than foreign income exceeds rupees 50 lakhs. Sorry. Now we said total income. What do I mean by total income? We compute the total income in the normal manner. Income under all heads of income minus deductions, that is your total income. It includes your foreign income also if it is taxable. When I am computing the total income of a person in India, it will include the foreign income also. But here, when I say that total income other than income from foreign sources, should exceed 15 lakhs, then only these amendments are applicable. Other than income from foreign sources. So I will exclude the foreign sources. That is why I say this is your Indian income. What is income from foreign sources? That has been defined. Income which accrues or arises outside India. Except two exceptions here. Again, the same exceptions which we are seeing for not ordinary. Unless and until it is from a business which is controlled from India, or it is from a business, a profession which is set up in India. That will be deemed to be Indian income. That will not be foreign income. So that will be included in computing your limit of 15 lakhs. So if your Indian income plus income from these two sources exceeds 15 lakhs, then the two amendments will become applicable to the Indian. Right? Then here, if you go in this slide a little lower, we have again explained this, that the foreign incomes will be included while computing the threshold limit of the 15 lakhs. All incomes which accrue in India, which are received in India, that accrue or arise outside India, but from a business controlled from or a profession which has been set up in India. So this is what we have to include for purpose of computing the limit of 15 lakhs. Can you come to the next slide, please? Right here, I have given you certain examples of the income which will be included in this 15 lakhs. Right? We have said that all income which accrues or arises in India. So any dividend income which is received by a resident in India, any interest income which you receive in India, capital gain which arises in India on transfer of a property in India, capital gain that arises on the shares of transfer of shares of an Indian company, capital gain of shares of a company which derives its value from a property situated in India. All these are deemed to be earned in India. All these incomes will be included in the income of 15 lakhs. The salary income that you get in India, the rental income that you get in India, any income from a business that you have in India, all that will be included in the limit of 15 lakh rupees. Similarly, what will not be included? Come to the next slide, please. Right? Salary income which you receive on account of services rendered outside India. Right? A person, as we're discussing, is employed in Dubai, is employed in Singapore. Salary income which he gets outside India, that is not Indian income. Neither it is from a business controlled from India. So that will not be included in 15 lakh rupees. Dividend that you get from an overseas company, from a foreign company, will not be included in this 15 lakh rupees. Interest that you get by deposit, let us say in a foreign bank account outside India. Capital gain which arises on the transfer of property outside India. You had a house in London, that house has been sold in London, you have received the consideration there, so capital gain rises in London. That will not be included here, that is foreign sources. Rental income from a property situated outside India will not be included. Business income from overseas sources which is not controlled from India. All that will not be included in this limit of 15 lakh. In the limit of 15 lakh rupees, again, we have to include only your Indian income. Foreign income is not to be included. Next, please. Next slide. Now let me analyze what will be the impact of these amendments. Now, prior to these amendments, an individual who could have been a non-resident because of the number of days stay will be a not ordinary resident. Right? The two amendments that we have analyzed. If he is staying outside India, comes to visit India, his stay in India should not be more than 119 days. If he crosses that, he becomes a not ordinary. Or if he is deemed to be a non-resident, that is, he is a citizen of India, he is not paying tax anywhere in the world, then he is deemed to be resident here. So that these two amendments will make him a not ordinary resident. Now, whenever he is a not ordinary resident, all the provisions of the Income Tax Act will apply to him, whichever are applicable to a resident. Whatever provisions are applicable to a non-resident will no longer be applicable to him because he has become a not ordinary resident. Right? Under the Income Tax Act, you will see that there are some exemptions which are available only to non-residents. Right? For example, a non-resident having a non-resident external account, an NRE account, or deposits in FCNR account, whatever income is derived from that, that is exempt in the hands of a non-resident. Earlier, if he was a non-resident, because the amendment he becomes a not ordinary resident, all these exemptions will be eliminated. He will have to pay tax on all that income. So those exemptions will not be available to him. Right? This is one of the impact of the amendments. Come to the next slide, please. Right here, I have tried to explain in this chart as to what income is taxable in the hands of various categories of persons. Any income which is received or deemed to be received in India is taxable in India irrespective of the status. Whether he is ordinary resident, not ordinary resident, non-resident, because income has been received in India. Similarly, any income which is earned in India, accrues or arises in India, is taxable under all the categories. Income which accrues or arises outside India, if it is from a business control from India or a profession set up in India, it is taxable if he is a resident. Whether ordinary or not ordinary, it is taxable. If he is a non-resident, then it is not taxable. And any income which accrues or arises outside India, then it is taxable only if he is ordinary resident. It is not taxable in the other two categories. Right. So this is the basic scope of income which has been defined in section 5 of the Act as to what income is taxable in the hands of various categories of persons. Come to the next slide, please. Now, if a person becomes a not ordinary resident because of the amendments, what will happen? His income will increase. We have just seen that even his income from a business outside India, which is controlled from India, will become taxable in his hands. He will lose a lot of exemptions which were available under section 10 to residents. Then under section 115A, we have seen that there are some concessional rates of tax for non-residents. Right? For example, dividend income. Now, dividend income in India has become taxable in the hands of the shareholder. It will be taxable at the rate applicable to them. An individual may be in the highest tax bracket. If he is in the 13% tax bracket, he has to pay tax at the rate of 30%. Whereas 115A says that in case of non-residents, dividend may be taxed maximum at the rate of 20%. There is a flat rate of tax of 20% for non-residents. Now, if he becomes, instead of a non-resident, he becomes a not ordinary resident, he will not be available for that concessional rate. He will have to pay tax at the normal rate of 30%. Whatever is this applicable tax rate to him, he will have to pay the tax on that basis. There are a few more repercussions also, which I will give in the next slide. Can we have the next one, please? Under the DTA, wherever we have a double taxation treaty with a country, there also, this itself is a very complicated topic. It requires a lot of discussion, but briefly we can discuss this. Under the DTA also, there are rules given how to determine the status of a person. Right? Just like we have, let us say we have a treaty with Dubai. Dubai treaty also says that if you have been in Dubai for 183 days, you become a resident. Our law also says that you are in India for 60 days or more, or 181 days, you become a resident here. So there could be a possibility where that person becomes a resident of both the countries. If he becomes a resident of both the countries, then we apply what is called a tiebreaker rule. Right? Tiebreaker rule says then we will look at his economic interest. Where is his business more located? Where are his economic interests located? Where is his personal interest? Where is his family located? Where does he have a house? So these are certain tiebreaker rules that we. But once a person is deemed to be a resident here by virtue of 618, then you will see that in most of the cases, that person will become a resident of India. As soon as he becomes resident of India, he will lose all the benefits which are available to him under the treaty. That will be a major repercussion for these persons who will be covered under the amendments. Secondly, when you file your income tax returns, in the income tax returns, you will find that there is a schedule given, a schedule of foreign assets. This schedule has to be filled up only by a person who is a resident. Resident may be ordinary or not ordinary. So now if he becomes a not ordinary resident, he will have to fill in that schedule also. In that schedule, you have to give details of all your foreign assets, all your foreign bank accounts. If you are a beneficiary of a foreign trust, you have to mention that. If you are signatory in a foreign account, also that you also has to be mentioned. So all those details will now have to be filled in as soon as he is treated as a not ordinary. These were not to be filled if the person was a non-resident. Right? And now, if you want to claim exemption of your foreign income also, the onus will be on you to establish that there is no nexus of that income with India. It is income earned and received outside India. Then only you will not be liable to pay tax. So now it will become a little more difficult for these individuals who will now be treated to be not ordinary residents by virtue of these two amendments. I think these were the major impact, the two amendments that I wanted to bring to your notice, and what will be the impact of these amendments. Right? To again summarize, two amendments which have been made. Firstly, in case of a person who is citizen of India or is a person of Indian origin who is staying outside India and whose total Indian income exceeds 15 lakh rupees, if he stays in India for more than 120 days, that is more than 119 days, he becomes a not ordinary. Second case, a citizen of India, income in India more than 15 lakhs, does not pay tax anywhere in the world, shall be deemed to be not ordinary resident. Repercussions of being a not ordinary resident we have just seen. Two incomes will now again become taxable. Income from a business which is controlled from India, although the business is outside India, it is controlled from India, that will become taxable. Income from a profession which is set up in India will become taxable. These are the major repercussions of the amendments. We can now open the discussion for questions. Any questions, any queries that you have? Any point that was not clear requires any elaboration, or any questions that you have, we can take up that. We have another 10-15 minutes with us.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, Mr. Ravi Gupta, sir. We have certain queries from members. Mr. Naveen Gupta, are you there, Naveen ji?
Navneet sir. No, yes sir.
Sorry.
Navneet Arora.
Please, Navneet Arora, please continue.
Hanji sir. Thank you sir. Good evening sir. Sir, my question is this. Bank often open two types of account for non-Indian residents. First NRO and another is NRI. What is the difference between these two accounts?
See, both these accounts are opened by persons who are non-residents.
Right.
NRO account is for your rupee payment. Right? A non-resident can have rental income in India. Right? He has a house in India which he has given on rent. He gets the rent from that in Indian rupees. That amount will be deposited in his NRO account. This is called a non-resident ordinary account.
Ordinary account.
And whatever money he gets in foreign exchange, that is deposited in the NRE account.
Okay.
Interest which he earns on the NRO account is taxable in India. Interest which he earns on his NRE account is exempt under Section 10.
Right, sir.
Right? NRO account
Right,
is for your rupee payment. NRE account is for your foreign currency payments.
It means a person can have both accounts.
Yes, he should in fact have both the accounts.
Sure. Okay, right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Please.
Thank you.
Bring into your NRE account. If you want to repatriate that, you can take away that money in your foreign exchange also.
Okay.
But once the amount comes into your NRO account, that you cannot remit outside India except with the certain guidelines of the RBI.
Right, sir. Right. Thank you, sir. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Ashna. Ashna, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good evening,
Please.
sir.
Please.
Sir, I would like to ask a question. What is the difference between citizen and person of Indian origin?
Ashna, see, any person who is born in India is automatically a citizen of India.
Okay.
Right? So citizenship is primarily by birth. While as a person of Indian origin is a person who himself may not be a citizen. But if either of his parents or any of his grandparents were born in India, then he is called to be a person of Indian origin.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any of his parents, father or mother, or either of his grandparents, maternal or paternal, 4 of them. So we have to see basically 6 persons. If any of these 6 persons were born in India, then this person will be deemed to be a person of Indian origin.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next is respected KK Singla, sir. Are you there, sir?
Yes, sir.
Please continue.
हाँ जी, नमस्कार गुप्ता जी.
Pleasure.
सर ऐसा है, if any person leaves India for educational purposes
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
and later on he joins a job there,
Yes.
then what provision will apply to him, whether the provision in the explanation that he leaves India for purposes of employment or normal?
Singla Sahib, in fact, both the provisions will become applicable to him in the year that he leaves, right? Then he can take the benefit of the explanation clause A.
जी.
Now, if he gets a job there and subsequently wants to return to India to visit India,
Yes,
then
sir.
he can take benefit of the clause B of that explanation.
Okay, sir.
Right? If his Indian income is less than 115 lakhs, he can come to India and stay here for up to 181 days. If his Indian income is more than 15 lakhs, he can stay here for maximum 190 days.
Right, sir.
Right? That benefit he can take year on year basis.
Okay, sir.
Every
Sir,
year.
one more question.
Yes.
One more question, please, sir. Sir, I understand if a person is issued green card in USA, but he has no income in USA, but he has income in India. I understand that he is supposed to file his return in USA
Yes.
and declare his global income.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes, sir. That is absolutely true. See, in America, we have an altogether different system of taxation. In fact, they levy a tax on their citizens. So if an American citizen is earning global income, he will have to pay tax in America on that income. He might be able to take advantage of this tax treaty. He will be able to take advantage of the tax treaty and get a relief in that country. But when he files a return, he'll have to declare his global income. Right? Because he is a citizen of America.
Right.
The FATCA rule, the FATCA Act that has been introduced in US, that is a very stringent law. And under that, you have to declare your global income.
Right. Sir, there is one more small query.
Yes, sir.
If a person is a resident as per definition under section 6(1) and also has income outside India, then I feel his global income is taxable in India.
No, depending on his status. If he is an ordinary resident, then only global income is taxable.
There is no need to declare his global income.
No, see, if he is a resident, whether he is ordinary resident or a not ordinary resident, then he has to declare that income.
Yes, sir.
He can claim the benefit of the treaty under section 90.
Right, sir. Now my question is, how he is to take a credit for the tax paid outside India? What document he requires?
He requires the evidence of having paid tax in that country. Right? It could be a return that he has filed there. It could be a proof of the deposit of tax there.
Yes.
Right? If he's a resident here, he will pay the tax on that income here. That will be included in his total income. We will compute the tax on that. And then under section 90, we will allow a relief of whatever tax has been paid.
Right.
Right? Depending on whether we have a treaty with that country or not, It could be under section 90 or it could be under section 91 if you get the treaty. But that relief will be allowed in computing your tax liability.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Singh.
Thank you very much. Next member is Mr. Deepak Kumar Goyal. Mr. Deepak, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Please continue, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Evening.
सर, पहले भी आपको बहुत अच्छे से सुना है, आज भी आपको बहुत अच्छे से सुना है। एक क्वेरी है जरा सी, एक असेसी है मेरा लंदन में, उसका प्रॉपर्टी थी यहाँ पे, लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन अराइज हुआ, एक्चुअल तो है वो 10 लाख रुपए से कम जो एडमिटेड है और डिस्प्यूटेड है 50C में 20 लाख रुपए, तो टोटल उसका इस हिसाब से जो बन जाता है वो 30 लाख रुपए लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन बन जाता है। तो मेरे एसएससी का स्टेटस क्या और कैसे रहेगा?
तो देखो, अगर वो इंडियन सिटीजन है
जी,
ठीक है सर
जी,
वो इंडिया से बाहर रहता है
जी,
और उसकी इनकम 15 लाख से ज्यादा है
जी,
15 लाख देखने के लिए हमने क्या देखना है, उसकी टोटल इनकम।
जी,
टोटल इनकम मींस इनकम कंप्यूटेड अंडर द इनकम टैक्स एक्ट।
जी,
तो अगर 50C का प्रोविजन लगता है तो भी उसको लगाकर उसकी इनकम कंप्यूट करनी है।
जी,
अगर 50C लगाकर उसका कैपिटल गेन 30 लाख रुपए बन जाता है तो उसकी इनकम 15 लाख से ज्यादा हो गई
जी,
तो वो इंडिया में 119 दिन से ज्यादा आएगा तब
जी,
वो नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट बन जाएगा
जी,
अगर वो इंडिया में 119 दिन से कम आता है तो
जी,
वो नॉन रेजिडेंट है
जी,
और नॉन रेजिडेंट है तो फॉरेन इंडिया की इनकम इंडिया में टैक्स देना पड़ेगा, फॉरेन की इनकम पे नहीं देना पड़ेगा।
जी।
ठीक है ना?
अच्छा, उसको
इंडियन
जो
इनकम पे तो उसको टैक्स देना ही है इंडिया में।
जी,
अगर वो नॉन रेजिडेंट है तो भी
जी,
इंडिया में जो कैपिटल गेन हो रहा है उसके ऊपर इंडिया में टैक्स देना ही पड़ेगा।
बिल्कुल ठीक। तो उसमें जो हमको टीडीएस करना था बायर को, वो टीडीएस भी करा दिया। अब उसको फर्दर जो एग्जम्पशन कोई मिलनी है, जैसे बेसिक अपनी एग्जम्पशन की छूट मिल जाती है अदर देन और कोई इनकम ना होने पे, लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन टैक्स चूंकि अलग प्रकार से टैक्स ट्रीट होता है, तो क्या उसको बेसिक एग्जम्पशन अवेलेबल होगी?
नहीं, वो नॉन रेजिडेंट को अवेलेबल नहीं है
जी।
लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन का टैक्स रेट 20% दिया हुआ है अंडर सेक्शन 112
जी,
और 112 में जो बेसिक एग्जेम्पशन दी जाती है दैट इज ओनली फॉर रेजिडेंट्स।
जी,
अगर वो नॉन रेजिडेंट है तो उसको सारे टैक्स पे 20% टैक्स लग जाएगा, सारी इनकम पर। अगर उसकी इनकम 30 लाख रुपए की है तो पूरे 30 लाख पे 20% टैक्स लगेगा, उसको 2.5 लाख रुपए की बेसिक एग्जेम्पशन नहीं मिलेगी।
तो उसको डीम्ड जब रेजिडेंट मान लिया जाएगा 30 लाख होते ही, 15 लाख से ऊपर जाते ही, तो जब वो डीम्ड रेजिडेंट मान लिया गया तो फिर तो उसको मिलनी चाहिए ना?
अगर रेजिडेंट है तो ना।
नहीं, रेजिडेंट नहीं है, डीम्ड रेजिडेंट में जाएगा ना सेक्शन 6।
रेजिडेंट तो एक ही बात है।
अच्छा,
ऐसा वो रेजिडेंट बन जाएगा तो उसको मिल जाएगा।
जब वो डीम्ड जब 15 लाख से ऊपर चला जाएगा तो डीम्ड रेजिडेंट में आ जाएगा।
हाँ, डीम्ड रेजिडेंट में आएगा तो उसको बेसिक इनकम मिलेगी,
फिर तो मिल जाएगा। ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सर।
Thank you. Next is Rizwan Sharif. Mr. Rizwan Sharif, are you there?
हाँ सर।
Please continue.
नमस्कार सर, गुप्ता सर। सर, आपसे सिर्फ वो प्रॉफिट वाली बात हो रही है। अगर पर्सन हैविंग बिजनेस इन इंडिया and he's controlling a business outside India, and if he's incurring loss outside India, can he get set off in the income from income earned in India?
देखो सर, आप बता रहे हो कि उसका
ऑल ओवर इंडिया जो है ना,
उसका
ऑल ओवर
इंडिया में है ना सर?
हाँ हाँ,
जब इंडिया में बिजनेस है तो वो इंडिया में ही टैक्सेबल है।
हाँ, इंडिया का बिजनेस का सेपरेट टैक्स दिखा रहा है, क्योंकि लास्ट सितंबर में उसने एक 18 लाख रुपीस कुछ दुबई में लॉस किया है।
फॉरेन का लॉस है ना, वो इस बिजनेस है या दूसरा बिजनेस है?
यही बिजनेस है, यही बिजनेस है,
यही
सेम बिजनेस
इंडिया में है।
हाँ,
तो इंडियन इनकम हो गई,
बट यस
इंक्लूड्स लॉस।
हाँ, he incurred loss in that place.
हाँ, तो लॉस आपको मिलेगा, इनकम इंक्लूड्स लॉस। अगर मैं इनकम को इंक्लूड कर रहा हूँ तो लॉस को भी करूंगा।
हाँ, वही पूछना था सर।
वो तो
भाई यहाँ पे इनकम अर्न्ड इन इंडिया कैन गेट सेट ऑफ विद दैट लॉस टू व्हाट एक्सटेंट?
नहीं, एक ही सर, अलग अलग बिजनेस है, ये पहले क्लियर कर लो।
हाँ,
एक ही बिजनेस है, इंडिया में भी कर रहा है, बाहर भी कर रहा है।
हाँ, एक ही बिजनेस है। यहाँ पे भी स्वीट एंड बेकरी स्टॉल है उसका, वहां पे भी है। यहाँ पे इनकम हो रही है उसकी, लेकिन वहां पे जाके जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट किया था वो टोटल लॉस होके बिजनेस में लॉस हो गया।
हाँ, तो
एंड
वो सेट हो जाएगा, वो लॉस
हाँ,
होगा उसका।
कोई सेक्शन मिलेगा सर बुक्स में से जहाँ पे मैं एलाबोरेट कर सकता हूँ?
सर
नॉट नो आफ्टर सम टाइम।
मैं आपको मेल डाल दीजिए, मैं आपको दे दूंगा। इसको केस लॉस भी है, बड़ा क्लियर करा हुआ है कि
जरूर सर।
इनकम इंक्लूड्स लॉस।
हाँ हाँ, या
मैं करूंगा तो लॉस भी उसको एडजस्ट करूंगा।
ठीक है सर, मैं मेल करता हूँ सर चैट में। बहुत शुक्रिया सर, थैंक यू सर।
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Snehal Thakkar from Gujarat. He is Secretary of Gujarat Sales Tax Bar Association. Snehal ji, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Please continue, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very nice listening. My query is regarding that to get the credit of tax paid in different countries under the DTAA, but when the year ending are different. Like say for example, USA has calendar year, and we are here a financial year. Our year ends on March, and in US it ends on December. So while calculating the income of this, what about the tax paid in before December and after December? How to calculate, sir, please?
Now, what we have to do is here, first we have to compute our income according to our year in India.
Okay.
So that income we will compute on the basis of the financial year. Right? Indian income tax we will compute on the basis of the Indian. Therefore, we will claim the credit only of the taxes paid during the period of April to March. Whatever tax we have paid on this income, which has been included in this income, on that we can claim credit in the financial year.
Okay, so in that case, the nomenclature will be different, because I'm showing income of the January to March in this year, but the tax I have paid I will pay tax in USA next year on that income.
Doesn't matter. I will claim the credit in the year that I declare that income in.
Okay, so I have to calculate the tax separately on this 3 months income, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will include that in this year, and then whenever I pay the tax there, whether I have already paid it or I have paid in the next year, I will claim that credit in this year.
So I will have to, in case of evidence of the tax paid, I will have to show him the tax paid for the 2 years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Got it.
Thank you, sir. Next member is Mr. Pinakin Patel. Mr. Pinakin, are you there? Mr. Pinakin? I think he has raised his hand. Not an issue, sir. Sir, series of question answer is closed. Now, on behalf of Gujarat Sales Tax Bar Association, Mr. Snehal Thakkar is the secretary of our Gujarat Sales Tax Bar Association. I am requesting Mr. Snehal Thakkar to give his comment on closing note. Mr. Snehal ji, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nigam, and thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I will like to introduce our Nigam Bhai. He is our past president of this state level bar association, the Gujarat Sales Tax Bar Association. It has so many different district level associations are the member of our association. And Nigam Bhai and father of Nigam Bhai both are our respected past president of our association. And he has taken too much pain to make us gather here. And is very much active. So we are very much lucky that we have Nigam Bhai like members and past president. Today we are lucky that we can listen, Mr. Speaker, sir. Today your speech was very much lucid, and we got too much different. We just came to know about the different this amendment and what are the impact. Really, it will be very much helpful to our day-to-day practice. And it becomes very much helpful and make us active in this home quarantine period. And I really thanks this national association and their active members. Please keep on this continued. We are really enjoying, and we are happy that to see these so many members from all over India. It's really make us very happy. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I am requesting Mr. K.K. Singla also because from his reference, we got opportunity to hear you. As well as Mr. Vipendra Kansal is with us. I got reference from Kansal Saab also. So, Mr. Singla, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Please, आप कुछ बोलेंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा सर. हमको भी थोड़ा strength रहेगा.
Thank you, Gupta sir. Dr. Ravi Gupta ji, your presentation was very impressive, and I thank you on behalf of NAC and all other associations and Punjab Tax Bar Association. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Singh sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, from bottom of heart, from all members, we are thankful to Ravi Gupta sir